Welcome to episode 5 of Brown Girls Bold Moves. This episode is a conversation between me, Nivatha Balendra, and Olga Cruz. Now, Nivatha, when I think of resilience, she personifies that. Nivatha is a founder who, before even building her company, dealt with stage 4B Hodgkin's lymphoma when she was just 20 and then went through that cancer journey alongside her mom, who was dealing with her own cancer journey. Nivatha came out of that and she vowed to make her dreams come true by contributing back to society and by building the company that she runs today, Dispersa. It is a company that is focused on creating sustainable, non-toxic solutions. She currently works in the space of creating biosurfactants that are derived from food waste. Now, she's joined by Olga Cruz, an early investor at a previous firm and now a current investor with BDC. This conversation really highlights the importance of resilience, of community support, and the role that a strategic investor plays in scaling businesses with impact. This one has to be one of my favorites. And no, I'm not just saying that because it's Canadian content. I really, truly hope you enjoy this and get as much out of it as I did. Thank you so much for making the time to do this. I don't even try and hide the fact that when it's pure Canadian content, I am like extra jazzed. So love that we're talking about the Canadian ecosystem with both the investor and the founder. And I'm especially excited because of I'm just a fan of both of you. So let's get into it. Nivatha, as we just talked about before the pod started, I want to start with reading something that really, for me, hit me in the heart. So I just want to read that to you and go from there. So you said, when I was 20, I was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4B Hodgkin's lymphoma. I made a promise to myself that if I were ever to make it out alive through treatment, that I would spend every moment making my dreams come true. That for me meant transforming my early science fair research into an impactful solution that benefits society, truly safe and non-toxic ingredients for a healthier community and a healthier planet, and that I'm grateful to be in remission and counting. For me, that really hit home in a couple of different ways, but I would say researching your journey, your life, and looking at what's the through line in everything about you? For me, it's resilience. I think about the resilience, being 17 years old, getting 59 no's and 1 yes, the fact that you made it to 59 no's, whether it's going through this cancer journey with your mom, whether it's a girl fundraising. That's like resilience 10x, right? I wanted to ask you, is that something that you feel is something you can trace back to how your parents raised you? Is it something that you feel is a muscle that you have to work on? And if you could speak to this from the point of view of a founder listening who's in most probably any aspect of building their company and journey, what are your ways in which you think about resilience at a macro and micro level?
Thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, it really touches my heart, and thank you for having myself and Olga here, Bhargavi. Really looking forward to today, and means a lot that you bring that up. It's really at the heart of soul of me as a person that obviously translates into Dispersa and what we're creating. Going back to whether it's innate or not, I would say definitely something that my parents helped sculpt. Coming from an immigrant background, which I think we can all relate to on this call, our parents worked so hard to give the lives that we have today. And growing up personally with my parents having fled the Civil War, and at the time coming as refugees, literally surviving. They moved because they had to survive. So then being born here and then hearing how they started with nothing, worked 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and to be able to provide for myself, my brother, and the education that we're so lucky to have. It really struck a chord for me in terms of, right, we have so much to be grateful for, but also what are we going to do with this opportunity that our parents have worked so tirelessly for? And part of that for me is also why, whether it's not only my parents, but one thing that they've always said is whatever you do, give it your best. And this is why we came here. This is why we wanted to provide this platform for you and your brother, is so you can go out and not have limits that we had. And that is something that, still sticks to me today in what I do is, if I got those 59 no's, I knew that there will be an eventual yes. And if there wasn't a yes, it's okay. We're just starting off our lives, and no matter what age we are, we can always start. And I think that was part of it for me was, it's okay to have the no's. You just have to keep pushing.
Did you have this innate belief that, oh, this is eventually going to be something? Like at that time, actually, did you know about wanting to build a company, or was it, I just want to get in a lab? I found something in my backyard. This is interesting. I just want to get in a lab.
Pretty much that. Yeah, that was really what was running through my mind was, oh, this is so cool. Like, let's just develop this research. And, being 17 at the time, absolutely not. I would have never imagined that I would be, here having Dispersa and grown to where we are today. It started with an idea of that was deeply rooted in passion and wanting to make an impactful change. So science fair at the time, and maybe some of the listeners might resonate with this in terms of they were having to do science fairs during schools too. But I remember starting science fairs in high school. But I'm a bit of a nerd, you can say, because I just did it because I loved doing it, not because I was, forced to do it. And doing that every year just for me showed how innovation could be used to solve some societal or environmental challenges, and I thought it was super creative. Like, how could we use science to solve a global issue? And so I, continued that, and eventually in 2013 is when I developed the initial research of finding these microbes that could break down oil and be used in these oil decontamination sites. So it wasn't until continuing that research and meeting with industry experts later through the science fair that opened doors to some opportunities that I thought, wow, okay, so this could actually be used by people. And how do we do that? Right. And that's kind of how the wheel started turning of like the cross section of entrepreneurship.
And we'll kind of get into like even more of the detail up to where you are now. But Olga, one of the things too, I was like, oh, you talk about this actually in an interview where you talk about seva and how seva can be in the form of your work, but it doesn't have to be. That it can show up in other aspects of your life, and that you talk about meeting with a Guruji, and that seva, that you kind of took away what he said as, oh, because I shouldn't go into impact investing, and your answer was no, does that actually mean that I shouldn't be involved in seva as a concept? And you really kind of reframed it. And so to me, I'd love to kind of hear, especially as an investor, how you describe seva. And that might have changed from the time you did the interview to now. So how do you describe that?
So I'm very glad that you're bringing this up. I don't even remember that interview, but it's something that is really core to who I am. I always talk about these like three things of like silence, seva, and like satsang. And seva, as a part of it, is that expression of who you really are, which is you are like this love substance. And I think that there's something very special when you get to do something that makes life more meaningful for other people or for the planet. Yes, of course, the work that I get to do is impactful. I get to work with founders like Neve that are just so ingrained into their mission. And that, normally I would say like, yeah, let's see, like that's enough. But, right. I still get paid to do that. And there's something special about being able to do things for the ones you don't get paid. Yes. And that's where my volunteering comes in. So I get to teach these like breath work and meditation courses every quarter, and it's very dear to me, and it brings something different to my life. And I do think that where everything starts is at the level of the individual. People don't just like randomly come up with these ideas of, I'm gonna build this thing that improves the health of people. Like it's all great at the, what people believe in, and that sense of doing things just better. Right. So I think that through those courses, I'm able to get people to some of those places, and then later they can also bring that to whatever they do. But for me, it's really important to not get paid for it.
But there's definitely aspects of that work that you do that you intertwine in your relationship with founders. They cannot be living as separate. I mean, Niv's like, even if I disagree, I'm just going to have to say I agree. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, they cannot live as two separate things. So I'm sure one feeds the other. And tell me if I'm incorrect about this, but the work that you do with offering breathwork and meditation, you also do that for founders. Am I right? You're like, I recognize that they're a stressed out bunch.
Very much.
So needed. And that's also how I get to build some of these like deeper relationships. Yeah. Niv was one of the founders that got the chance to take
Niv, did you attend?
Course.
I did. So Olga and I was going to say, I mean, I love Olga. And we did this session almost a year and a half ago,
okay.
And it was amazing. I've always wanted to get into breath work and meditation, and then hearing Olga speak about it and just how transformative and how really rooted it keeps you really spoke to me. And so we did a session together, and then although I'm a little out of practice right now, I do have to admit I'm getting back on it, Olga. But Olga and I would actually have weekly meditation sessions after that, and like it really was amazing because there's work. It's like what Olga said. There's work for work, and of course there's impact related to the work that we're all doing, because that's just who we are as people. But then there's what you don't get paid for, and you do it because you want to do good. Mm-hmm. And that's just really, really important. It's like not expecting anything in return. It's just you're doing something because you want to help. And I think that's something that definitely resonates a lot, and within the sessions, and even just the meditation aspect of it and breath work, it really helps to ground you, right? Like as a founder, there's 100,000,000 things and decisions that need to be made, but it really kind of helps have a clear slate as you're making those decisions.
Yeah, that's also how I would define it. One of the ways how you can, talk about stress is when you have too many things to do and you have very little time or very little energy. Yes. And this option of like, oh, we're going to do less. No. That's not what we do. So it's more, how can you increase your energy levels? How can you increase, the capacity that you have? And that's what we do through these practices.
Without tension and seamlessly, where it feels like you're in ease.
Exactly.
Because we're all obviously trying to do more, but it's with tension versus with ease. Is that fair to say?
100%. Fair to say. And as you're doing it in that way, then also your perception becomes clearer. And, you can make better decisions. You can also become more intuitive. It's also part of what I use in my work. We invest at such an early stage that is like the level of traction that you can see in documents is very limited. So you do need to start with some level of intuition at some place. When I actually heard about Dispersa the first time, I was really interested about the company and about the team. And I asked someone from my team to go and check out the pitch at this event that I think Mars was organizing, and they came back and they were like, oh, no, I don't think that this is a good fit for us. And I'm like, no, hold on a second. I think that there's something here. Mm-hmm. I want to have a conversation with the founder and explore this a little bit better. And that's also when we met, and I was like, yeah, there's definitely something here. So I would say that you do have to bring these pieces of intuition to your work, and having practices that support that are crucial as an entrepreneur and as an investor.
Okay, founders, Get on your meditation game, as I say it to myself. Olga, I hope you are able to host something for Brown
I
Girl
would
Angels.
love
I'll
to.
have
I
to.
would
I'll
love
have
to
to.
do
That would
Yeah,
that.
be amazing.
I would
Yeah,
love
sign
that.
me up.
Let's get into the journey because, like, honestly, Nivetha, did you have to go have a bacteria named after you? How am I supposed to tell my mom that? Like, for every time she listens to a podcast that we're gonna have, I'm like, yes, mom. I also did not get a bacteria named after me. So
We
let's get
can we
into
can name
this.
one after you.
Well, yeah, at this point, I'm like, okay, I think actually the resilience piece, right? Never say never. So
Yeah,
let's get into
never
it.
say never.
I would love to start. Well, I mean, the place this started was, as with many things, it starts with a problem, and in this case, it was a very, memorable, big thing that happened. I mean, one of the biggest. I would think it's like one of the fourth or fifth biggest rail disaster in Canada, if I'm right. But um, I remember that. I remember that was 2013 when Lac Megantic happened, and it was a due to just to catch the listeners up to speed. It was and jump in, Nivetha, where I get it wrong, but it was a derailment of just oil tankers. I think it was like 70 plus cars just sitting there that rolled down a hill. Like that's a lack of a better way to put it, and essentially demolished an entire community and an entire town with the loss of life. And so start there, and then so that happens. It was the inflection point of your life, of where you are now. So if you could start there with what happens then from Lac Megantic to your backyard, to discovering a strain, to having it named after you, to where we are. Just like start, if you could start with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So exactly as you mentioned, it was a really disastrous accident. Um, and for me at the time, being 17 and just hearing this on the news, I mean, Bhargavi, you've heard it as well, right? And it was so prevalent in the media. And at the time at school, it was also around the time that, I would be looking to develop a science fair project. And what I was also thinking about at the time, and what I've always been deeply rooted in, whether it was that year in 2013 or even before when I was starting science fair, was how are we using science to solve global challenges or even local challenges? And that was really at the root of it for me. So now 2013, as I heard about this first, just reading about it, my initial thought was how impactful on the environment are oil spills? Like how prevalent is this? Because it's such a disastrous accident, and like you said, not only impacted the environment but claimed the lives of so many, and it's really tragic. And then hearing about what the cleanup efforts are going to look like, that really prompted me to say, right, are we cleaning contaminated sites with more fossil fuels? Like how is that looking like? And at the
In Gen
time,
Z speak, the math isn't mathing. Like we're
the math
cleaning.
is yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The spill isn't spilling, or however that's said.
I
Yeah,
love that. The math is definitely not mathing. And I
yeah.
was just thinking, right, okay, we need to get to work, stat. So 2013, and I'm reading more about oil spills, and I'm thinking, wow, okay, oil spills are one of the largest contributors to a negative environmental impact globally. Then, you hear about the Gulf of Mexico spill and like how disastrous that was. And I looked into, well, how are they cleaned up, And I thought, especially at that time, there surely should be something that is sustainable that would be not only cleaning it up but also ensuring that it's not adding
To the
to
problem.
the problem. Exactly. So this is where it all came to be, and then I started developing the science fair project. So previous to that year, I had done an internship in a lab where I learned more about biosurfactants and how they can be used in different applications, and that was at a lab in Laval, Quebec. And so I kind of put one and one together and thought, okay, well, there's this molecule that's produced by this bug that could clean up spills, but also could be used as an alternative to everyday ingredients that we find in products. But that that's really how I started developing the research and said, right, I'm going to look for some microbes or bugs that produce this ingredient. And it's not all bugs, it's not all of the microbiome that we find everywhere that produce what we call biosurfactants, which is code for soapy ingredient. And then it had to develop into a research project where you're going and looking for the types of bugs that we need. So that's where, the search of going into my backyard and all started.
At that time, if you could go back to that, is it just simple, good old curiosity that was fueling you? I ask this question because when there's big problems sometimes that people identify and founders or maybe to-be founders identify, a lot of times there's wait, I think I can find the answer to that. Like, that creeps up sometimes. But for those who just do, like yourself, what is it? Is it some kind of a flow state that you're in where you're like, I don't actually think about that? Or do you remember being like, oh, I think I can find the answer to this? Like, and I think it's a question that I think sometimes people broadly ask about scientists, right? Like,
Yeah.
do you remember that time? Was it just the flow state of curiosity?
That's a great point. And, I can't exactly pinpoint the exact inflection point at that time, but I would say that for me was always driven, yes, by curiosity, but also understanding like why don't we have this already? And that was the bigger point for me was, I learned about biosurfactants in this research a year prior and about its amazing benefits and how it could be this great solution for XYZ industries, including oil spills. And then fast forward to when it happened, and I thought, right, are we using biosurfactants today to clean this up? And then looking into it, I see, no, we're not. And I'm thinking, well, why? We have this at a lab scale. We know it's producing it. We know that there's an ingredient that can essentially be produced by an organism we can't even see with our eyes. Like, how
Incredible.
insane is that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when I thought, right, well, how are we going to get to having enough of it so we can clean up these sites? Obviously, it's not as easy as that, there's a lot of steps involved to get it there. But that was definitely a big moment for me was, and it fueled my motivation, going into the lab every day, discovering new things. And essentially when I found that there were multiple new microbes that could produce this ingredient that were not previously identified or similar to what had previously existed, my mindset at the time was mainly in research. And I was thinking, wow, if I could help contribute more knowledge to this, like that could be great to eventually create something that is commercialized. And that's really what motivated me is, how could we advance knowledge?
And bring us to today and how you describe Dispersa if to a absolute layperson, and like you said, biosurfactants is just soapy, the soapy stuff. So in lay English, how do you describe Dispersa? How do you describe the proprietary process you have of BioEterna? And I think PureSurf is like scheduled to go onto the market soon. So if you could kind of cover all three in simple English.
Absolutely, yeah, I will do. So at Dispersa, we convert food waste into what's essentially a soapy ingredient found in everyday products like cleaners, dishwashing liquids, laundry detergents, and my favorite example, which is ice cream. So this is a completely palm petroleum-free alternative to one of the most critical ingredients found in everyday industries. And like most chemicals, which contain palm and petroleum, the name for this ingredient is called a surfactant, which is a technical name, but it basically helps break down oils, or in some cases, we have oil and water, two phases that don't mix. The moment you add a surfactant, it makes it into one. So a surfactant can have many roles depending on the product or industry it's in, but all to say it's a really important ingredient, and we're trying to reinvent the ways, the chemistries of how this is created, and to really put forward the notion that it's not that chemicals are bad, it's how they are produced that needs to change. And this is where, for us, using food waste, which we have an abundance of,
Yes, too much.
too much, fortunately or unfortunately.
Yeah.
So tackling two problems at a time. Let's reduce food waste, but let's create an ingredient that we still need, because we still need those soaps, we still need those cleaners, we still want ice cream.
Yes.
And how could we create that with less environmental impact? And that's really what we're doing at Dispersa.
And so Pura Surf is your first line of products that is
Exactly.
commercialized, that's hitting the market. If you could fill in the blanks on that.
Yeah, absolutely. You got it. So Pura Surf is our flagship ingredient, and it's actually the world's first fully waste-derived biosurfactant. And I love saying that only because our team works so hard to bring it to where it is today. And we're really innovating at the frontiers of science to create a material that the world hasn't seen. And for us, that means a lot to have the honor of doing that. And with Pura Surf, specifically right now, it was curated for cleaning products. So if you can imagine, in all of our lovely products, we have different needs. So in a cleaning products, of a cleaning greases, but we can't necessarily use the same surfactant or ingredients in a cleaning product as we would for a laundry detergent or like a makeup remover, and other types of products. So what we're doing right now with Pura Surf is we curated it for cleaning products. So we work with cleaning product manufacturers, folks who create surface cleaners, floor cleaners, or
so that it
hand
integrates
soaps
into the product.
That's it. We
Right.
want to make sure it's easy, right? We don't
Right.
we don't want to create something that would add more work for our customers. I think it's something of, here's an easy swap in,
Right.
and we're here to help support in making a sustainable product.
From the business side, which we're going to get into, the adoption has to be something that isn't, for scalability at least, it has to be something that isn't, a roadblock. I mean, that's kind of usually where things are great ideas, but whether it's in medical research or whether it's in science, that's where they go, and they go into a graveyard and, die a sad poor death. So the adoption and figuring that piece out is what's so exciting. But that's actually a good segue too, to kind of get into, I think, what continues to be really kind of BTS, not in a good way, which is that process of fundraising, finding not just capital, but finding strategic capital, whether it's at the pre-seed stage, and whether it's at the follow-on, and so forth. And I think what's especially lovely with having Olga is that she can talk to that life cycle to date, because she came on when you were at Good and Well, if I'm
Exactly.
correct, at the pre-seed stage, and when I think you went, Nivatha, I think it was your dad, right, that told you about the cleantech challenge? Is that where
Yeah,
is the
he
Mars
did.
cleantech challenge? Yeah, is that where Olga?
did,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So I mean, it's like
It all
family
links.
business here.
Everything starts
yeah.
with Papa Balendra.
It starts with Papa Balendra. Olga has met my dad. We're tight. Yeah, but
I was
yeah, it
like,
all
I
started
mean,
with
obviously, one needs to be like, is Papa Balendra like the first person on the cap table? Is obviously the question, but maybe that's personal. We'll keep that to the side. But we know he had a strong input into where the dots connecting.
absolutely.
So let's get into the, if you don't mind, Olga, if we can talk about the Good and Well, kind of when you were there, and which I believe was a social impact family office that you were leading the investing on, and talk to kind of, actually, before you talk to it, there's something that you said, which I know you're like, don't say I don't remember this, because this is actually, I love this, because I think it just speaks to how you think, and I'm just going to read it to you, and if you could kind of jump from there into what you already touched upon, which is like why Nivatha as a founder and why Dispersa was of interest to you. You said the founder has to be very strong. They have to have resiliency, that creativity, that ability to innovate. And then, of course, that's when you're also looking at the business model and everything, but an entrepreneur can also pivot. They can do something else. So first, you want the person themselves to be very strong and have that commitment. And this to me is like everything at the pre-seed and that early stage. So could you kind of talk about your time at Good and Well, where you first met Dispersa, and how the conversations kind of led into that initial investment and the follow-on, and then I know you just now you're at BDC Thrive Lab, which people need to hear about and understand as well. So if you could kind of take us through that journey.
Yeah, so Nick was talking about this program, the Mars Women in Cleantech program, and that's where I was telling you that I had the chance to hear about the company, and then someone from my team went to see what was going on, and then after that I took that meeting with Neve, and I was able to just very quickly learn so much about her character. There are many things that, even in this interview she has said that you can see, when she talks about like how proud she is about her team, her like the reason why she built this, that why behind that desire to contribute. So that already tells you a lot about who she is. And then, then later, yes, of course, we look at the strong business fundamentals, and when companies that are so deep tech come to our table, there are a few things. Like one is that ability to explain in very simple terms what they're doing.
Yes.
What Neve just shared with you is also what I got to hear in that first meeting. I will always remember that surfactants can even be found in your favorite ice cream, and now you can have biosurfactants.
Did not know that. Yes.
You have to be creative to also come up with things that are easy to understand and people can remember. There are so many founders that we meet every day. You have to be memorable in a way, and that that character comes very easily in this case. And then, of course, the business fundamentals are there. So, at the early stages, it's easy to see companies that maybe have a few LOIs, letters of intent, and that, they say, oh, I do have really good traction. It's something different when you see the customers being involved in that development. So, what you were explaining about how they actually want to integrate with their formulations. And you may realize, like, okay, maybe this is not working. Is there anything else that I can be doing? And while, adjusting things for their customers, which already is such a great proof of like product market fit, knowing that they're the ones that are also investing time. It's not just capital, but it's like they're investing time.
We need this.
Working with
you.
Exactly. And then on the side, the company was very clear in terms of what was needed in terms of capital to reach the milestones. So they knew their milestones inside and outside, right. and they knew exactly what was needed for each stage. So yes, you might find that there is definitely a big gap when it comes to investing in cleantech companies at the earlier stages. We can talk more about the massive gap in investing in women at these early stages. Yep. That's actually the reason why I decided to come to BDC's Thrive Lab. But if you are able to break that down into very simple steps that someone can understand how much capital is required, what are you going to be able to reach, what's the technical milestone, what's the commercial milestone, then you can easily see how it's going to happen. Of course, it might require in some cases a longer time horizon, but if you're prepared for that, and in the case of family offices, and that's the case of Good and Well, they do have the capacity to be able to do that, and that's why there's just so much value that can be added at those.
And when you say stages. To do that, you're talking kind of about being in the game, being in it for the long game, because I think that's something that investors. Just speaking even to Brown Girl Angels and some of the investors in some of the biotech companies, fem health companies that we look at, it's a long life cycle before you see a return. And of course, we're not talking about kind of in between stages of, pre-seed to Series A. There's obviously opportunities at these tranches, but it is a general kind of trepidation of like, oh, dang, this is going to take a long time. So how, Nivatha, well, first of all, did you encounter that as an objection? Obviously, things went well, and you raised, I believe it was 3.3, am I right? 3 or 3-ish, 3M. But was that an objection that you dealt with a lot, which is like, oh man, this is going to take a long time to commercialize?
Definitely, I think initially, so that was our pre-seed round, and Olga's been there from the start, honestly, and really one of our first champions. And believing in what we're doing, and so to go back to your question about, the reticency behind the timeline, it, that was also a filtering process. And I think it's natural. That was the first time that I was raising capital as well. And so, as a first time founder raising capital is a really different journey too. And it was a great learning experience of, right, we had our wish list of investors where we have to do our due diligence as founders to really understand first if there's a fit. You don't want to end up pitching to an investor who only invests in SaaS startups. Like, that's not going to be a fit for a clean tech company. And that
say it loud for the people who are just trying to raise all dollars. All dollars are not the same.
All dollars are not the same, and it's not personal. It's just each investor, each fund has their specific thesis, and as a founder, the onus is on us to do the research that's available publicly and through initial diligence calls before going into it. So I think those initial calls really helped refine our wish list. So we had a set number of investors, and then we pitched or had informal discussions first and wanted to understand if there is a mutual fit. And that's part of the process. There might be some investors who say, we're not an evergreen fund. We are not a fund that invests in capital intensive models like clean tech. And that's totally fine. It's nothing personal. It's just that's just the decision. But then it allows the founder, and it allows us as a group to really focus on the capital that does invest in that type of model. And so I think we inch closer to aligned investors, and it is very dual-sided because as founders, we're going out and raising capital, and we're getting to know, especially at that time, it was the first time I was raising capital, about the types of questions you can ask to kind of refine your list. But I would say it's also on the investor side, having champions like Olga who understood what we were doing and took the time to learn. I think I do want to emphasize that because it's not all investors who do that. With Olga, I still remember it to this day. And I say that because even if a fund or investor is not typically invested in a space, it does not mean that they won't ever invest. But and good and well, if I can share that, and Olga can speak to it much more. We were the first investment of this kind by Good and Well. But I definitely would hand it to Olga because she took the time, and I mean so much time, to really understand what we were doing. And it wasn't just understanding the business, it was understanding the impact and, how are we going to scale this and how are we scaling impact. And that was really meaningful to me as a founder and as an entrepreneur, because that showed me that not only Olga, but Good and Well as an investor are really invested in their company, not only from a technology perspective or the product or the revenue. They want to really understand how are we going to support. Yeah, they're in this with us. And that values alignment is the most important piece for me personally, is to know that these are real teammates, that we can turn to, and if we need support, they will help us get there. So I think that finding investors who know that this is something that takes time, and all clean tech is different. We're biomanufacturing, so it does take time, but strategically there are ways to mitigate timelines or look at things that make sense and be capital efficient, and this is where together we can make those decisions to get there faster.
Olga, you touched upon this about, your move to BDC's Thrive Labs, and BDC's focus, not just in Thrive Labs, but just generally there are like the Thrive platform for women focuses on really upping the ante on investing in female-led companies. I think it would be super helpful, because I'm saying something that I don't think I'm the only one. There's a lot going on at BDC. There's a lot of funds, and there's a whole separate, I know Snitha Balsara, for example, she's at a sustainability fund doing like later stage, I think it's like Series B or later. Shout out to Snitha. But if you could explain, first of all, what BDC is, because there's Americans listening to this as well, what Thrive Labs is, and that aspect of how you continued your journey with Nivatha and with BDC coming on this year, I believe. And because Nivetha, am I right? You raised another 5M, 5.8, what's the number?
Exactly.
Somewhere around that.
5.8. Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't remember what I spent at Sephora, but I can tell you I'll always remember what I spent, what people are spending and raising. This is a unique issue. But going back to that.
Sephora is a dangerous place,
Dangerous
sure,
place where we try not to remember.
Yeah, but very gratifying.
Yeah. So yeah, Olga, if you could talk about, kind of start with BDC Thrive and then, your journey onward with Dispersa.
Yeah, for sure. So BDC has, let's say, two pillars. And for everyone that is listening, it's important to understand that BDC is backed by the government and is an institution that is there to support entrepreneurship, small businesses, and those companies that can truly scale. So we have the financing side of BDC, and then there's BDC Capital. So BDC Capital is actually the most active VC in Canada at the moment. And depending on what's happening in the country, then the mandate might just get adjusted in terms of industries or spaces. Today, something that has been really impressive, and I'm really grateful that I got to join after, we have Geneviève Boutelier as the executive vice president of BDC Capital. And, she brought a really clear mandate to collaborate between the funds, which is why, you were saying there's a lot going on, but as we're going to be working closer together, we're going to be just like one BDC, very solid, working together and helping the company transition across their different stages from their pre-seed, seed through Series A, Series B. So I think that that's going to be taken care of. And then you were talking about the Thrive platform. So the Thrive platform has been the largest initiative globally to invest in women. So 500 million committed to support women. Exactly. So there is the one portion dedicated to funds of funds. Then there is one that today is being led by Mona Minhas. You might
of course
know her.
I was like, how can I just insert Mona Minhas's name from BDC into this conversation? She's like brown girl baddie.
Such a superstar and such an example, inspiration to everyone. I hope we can maybe bring her.
Yes, I know. I literally texted her yesterday saying this. I was like, am I trying to make you jelly a little? Olga's on first, so just let me know when you want to come on next.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Yes, but please continue. Yes.
So then Mona is mainly working with late seed, Series A, Series B, and then we have the Thrive Lab, where I play. So the Thrive Lab has 100 million committed to two pillars. The first pillar is for early stage companies. That's the one that I lead. So the first pillar is supporting the pre-seed and early seed stages of companies that are led by women. This is defined as at least one woman in the co-founding team. But then also they have impact at the core. I was telling you already how this is actually a competitive advantage because it helps entrepreneurs be resilient and determined. And because there is such a need. Yes. So that's what we do in terms of the thesis for the first pillar of the lab. Then the second one is about to be launched. And actually we would love to start announcing this.
Yes.
So this one is the entrepreneurship through acquisition strategy that we have within the lab to help women acquire businesses and then help them transition, to become more impactful. So that one is also an amazing opportunity. Not all entrepreneurs have that, come in the same ways. Yes. So we also have to adjust to be able to serve in different capacities.
Well, and it's so timely with what's happening in the market with the transfer of businesses to, who? That's the problem we're trying to solve, right? So this is so timely and so needed. And I'll speak for myself, social media where, Brown Girl Angels is very active. We see a lot of that noise on social media. Go buy a laundromat, go buy a this, it's like, I'm not buying ice cream with biosurfactants in it. I'm not buying ice cream. I'm like, there is a structure and a methodology to it, and I think it's fantastic. This is fantastic that BDC is addressing that.
Yeah, exactly. We need to get more capital and more businesses in the hands of women.
Yes. Oh, amazing. And where can people read more about this? Is it going to available on the website
So
soon?
it's gonna be launched on September 22nd.
Oh,
So there
wonderful.
will be more, just out there. But if anyone that is listening is very interested in the topic and want to come for our event, just send me a note.
I love it. The other thing I was going to say, Olga, is just listening to Nivetha talk about that fundraising journey. I think you need to have like a separate track called meditation breathwork during fundraising, where it's like extra long.
I
I
know.
love
And I
that.
think that's like
Yeah.
for all founders. No, but all jokes aside, I just think it's wonderful. Where are things headed now? Because we talked about this lengthy kind of commercialization process, but that's actually not true for Dispersa. I mean, Nivetha, you continue with your resilience and your grit to keep pushing boundaries, and the the speed at which you're moving is amazing. So can you share kind of present day, where is Dispersa at and what's coming for 2026?
Yeah, absolutely. For where we're at right now, we are fully laser focused on getting larger production in for our first ingredient, Pura Surf M. And over the last 6 years, it's been an amazing adventure of seeing this ingredient essentially come out of a petri dish to now producing volumes upon volumes and servicing purchase orders to customers.
Oh,
We are
gratifying.
focused, it is really gratifying. And our focus for the moment is North America and working with brands across and just understanding their motivation to create sustainable products. And we're talking about smaller family-owned businesses all the way to multinational brands, and the story looks different, but one thing that is really collective is the wish for impact and wish to create a sustainable movement that the momentum is already going, and being able to be part of that story is definitely something common. But the challenges definitely look different, right? And I think this is where for us systematically from the start it was about making sure sustainability is not compromising affordability, and the way we scale can really de-risk that, not only for us and our stakeholders, but also and especially our customers, because ultimately we have folks who are really excited about the materials, but if it's not meeting the right price point, then it does impact adoption. And that's where the focus has been for us. And so moving forward, we're now at the scale of commercially producing, which is really exciting. And we're able to say that we're producing an ingredient for the first time that is fully waste derived as a biosurfactant, but also one that is considerably more affordable and enabling this market shift to now more sustainable surfactants. So that's really what's up for us, I would say, in the next year.
There was a recent interview with Amrita Saigal and Charles Hudson of Precursor Ventures. And Amrita Saigal is the founder of Kudos. It's a line of diapers, sustainable diapers. And, we were talking about this thing that I'm also kind of bringing back to this conversation around end of day, the do good is important, but the it can't be utopian in that the unit economics have to make sense. And I think this is where having investors like BDC, having champions like Olga to kind of be almost like your I assume truth tellers when I think of like that investor founder relationship to say, okay, yeah, and because you need that ebb and flow. And is that kind of like how you both, and I'm not just obviously not relegating it to just BDC. You have a large, a wonderful cap table. But is that kind of part of how you lean on investors in this journey of figuring that piece out so that this is a long-term sustainable play from a business point of view?
That's a great point. When we're looking at our syndicate and now our board as well, in which Olga also sits, it's really important for me that we have not only values alignment, but also richness and the diversity of experience. And I really truly believe that we have that. And I'm grateful for that because as a first time founder, we're experiencing things perhaps for the first time, and everyone's journey looks different. But what I really appreciate is that we have an amazing syndicate and board, each coming from different backgrounds. So if there's a question that I have. I can absolutely, and I have on many occasions, and Olga knows this. Olga, I need to talk. And, I call the others up as well because everyone has such rich expertise in different domains that, it's really invaluable. The investment is one piece, but I think the true investment is everyone's time and commitment to making this work. So I think it's really important for founders to look beyond the check and look at the person who's investing in the company and say, right, this is someone who signed on to the journey itself, and as you as a founder, and they're helping you get there, and just being open to that feedback and being able to learn, because ultimately we all want to get there. We all want to see Dispersa succeed and be in all of these wonderful products and ice cream and all of this. But I really like what you said, Bhargavi, which is we can't be utopian about it. We have to be really pragmatic. And I think that was something that was really important for me was, right, we have our dream, and it's my dream, we want to get there, but is this a 5-year timeline? Is it a 10-year timeline? And then let's work backwards and let's break it down. Let's break it down into segmented milestones and see how are we getting there? What are the resources we need? What is it going to cost us? And then what metrics we need to achieve internally as a team to make sure we get there. And so yeah.
And this is where, with the breadth of BDC and the breadth of Thrive Labs and just like the platform as a whole, that kind of, it's the compounded experience that I think makes, BDC such a champion in the market. And so, so this is a, shout out to BDC as well at Broad.
Absolutely.
I want to kind of close off this conversation and bring it back full circle to, what we started with, which was talking about resilience. And we didn't touch upon it early on, but I wanted to hold it to the end to say, not only did you, Nivatha, go through a cancer journey, but you went through it with your mom at the same time. And reading about your mom, and I'm trying not to get emotional talking about it, but reading about your mom and, and just Olga and all of us talking about seva, and that they came here to this country with so little, and yet the first thing that she did was to be, work, service in the form of being at the South Asian Women Tamils Community Center. And for her to do that, there's no way that seeing that in your parents didn't have an impact on you. So, with your permission, I'd love to dedicate this to your mom.
Thank you so much. Really, you're gonna make me cry too now. But
I'm just so proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, she is such an amazing role model, and in both not only myself and my brother, but also with my dad, she always says, no matter what you do, you need to do good for the community. And, that's our purpose, is using our strengths to contribute to a better life for those around us, and through simple actions that we can do that. And, for her, she, in a way, in her job and when she was working at at SOC, she helped so many women as a community worker, and then later on became to be the president of the organization. But she was helping women and their families immigrate into Canada, into Quebec, and then making sure that they're transitioning into the lifestyle here, and growing up just seeing how it wasn't a 9 to 5 for her. She would be on calls with the families that she's helped, and they became family. I remember going to their birthday parties or family events, and I'm thinking, wow, Amma is so amazing. She's she truly cares about people. Yeah. And I just think that that's so rare that it really struck a chord for all of us. And, that's really definitely what's something I can only strive to be, a fraction of the amazing human she was.
We think you're doing great and beyond great. Who knew biosurfactants could get us this emotional?
I love that.
Thank you so much. I mean, for Brown Girl Angels, it is truly, seeing founders like yourselves, you, and seeing the support of founders like you through BDC, through investors, early champions like Olga, that, remind us that it's an entire ecosystem, and we, as angel investors, and shout out to actually one of our angel investors in Austin who has a probiotic cleaning company. So when I was telling her that I was called Hive, and when I was telling her I was interviewing you, I was like, I guess the social impact sustainability crowd, it's a whole scene apparently that I'm like finding out about. But it really is that. And there's a few other founders I think who really need to be in your aura. So with that, thank you so much for your time, and this was amazing.
No, thank you for creating this space for us and for so many women. And I hope that, everyone remembers that power of resilience, but also about truly caring.
Yes.
So when you truly care about your team, the people around you, that's how you build stronger relationships, how you do something more meaningful. It's people think that, we have this like really good relationship just because, but no, it's been built over time. It requires effort from both sides, It's like owning what you want to create. And just having a lot of also trust that the best will happen.
Oh,
that's it. Absolutely.
That is it.
And thank you. Yeah, really. Thanks, Olga, for sharing that too. And Bhargavi, this was really amazing. And I just want to say thank you for, being such a champion for women in general, but especially for brown girls, and the amount of time that you're spending into creating these platforms and spaces for women who look like us and what we're trying to create. It means a lot. It means the world. And and thank you for having us here.
I'm just so excited for the founders who are out there who some I can put faces and names to in my head already, who are building and who need examples like you and your journey to, find you as well, which I'm just going to dole out your LinkedIn to everybody at this point. No, I'm just kidding. But no,
Please,
to really see that, your journey. So thanks, guys. To learn more about angel investing and to get involved in mobilizing your capital and funding South Asian female founders building scalable companies, enter our world. You can find us at browngirlangels.com. Now you can also interact with us on major social platforms: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. And of course, grab your chai, open your inbox, because there's our newsletter, Brown Girls Money Moves. Do also attend one of our Brown Girl Angels events in your city. We host a monthly dinner series called Brown Girls Desi Dinners, so make sure to sign up for that. Thanks for listening to Brown Girls Bold Moves. I'm your host, Bhargavi Varma. This podcast is produced by Edit Audio and associate produced by Cam Graywall. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode.